All right, guys, so as you can see, the backsplash ends right here at the end of the cabinet. You can either stop your tile at the end of the cabinet here, or you can stop it at the end of your countertop. They typically don't line up, so I always give customers the option. Do you want me to stop here? Because a lot of times your tile is actually going to stop inside of it to line up with this, because you don't really want it to have to poke out. So when you tear out a backsplash, you know, they normally put all of this sheetrock up, and then all these cabinets are built later. So when you do a remodel, it's a lot harder to put sheetrock back up because there's not a stud right here. So we actually try to tear the tile out and leave this sheetrock existing, and then just add in from on. In this case, it started to break out in this area, so we actually had to replace it. We have the same issue going on right here. We tried to keep it intact so that we could leave the old sheetrock to this stud, but it didn't work. So we're actually going to have to add some lumber in here to give us some support here. In this particular case, you can see we left the sheetrock existing, and we have somewhere to screw our new sheetrock to, here and here. So that's what we try to do on all the ends, is leave the old sheetrock in place. But sometimes when you pop it off, sheetrock's not real strong. It busts a hole in it, and then we don't really have a choice. All right, I'm going to take and boom, I'm going to take and put a couple of screws and screw it to the other stud, and then I'll be able to have something solid to screw my sheetrock to so that it's not flapping around in the wind. Tile is a flat, rigid surface. So to install a tile, I need a flat, rigid surface. Walls are rigid enough for tile because we're not walking on them. So floors need to be a lot more solid. So in this particular case, sheetrock is good enough to install tile. We're nice and tight to the stud everywhere. But here, if you look, there is a nice, ginormous gap right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some shims up. And then when we put our sheetrock back up, it's going to be nice and flat, and we don't have to fight the installation of our tile. So the key to any kind of construction is prep. Hardest part of any of it is the prep work. So in tile's case, if you get everything flat before you start, the installation is a million times easier. You don't want to fight having to level it out when you're installing it. So we're going to get this flat, and then the installation should be a breeze. Can you get me? Mm-hmm. The most important part of the job is to make sure that the customer makes a good cup of coffee. And this coffee here is awesome. So don't forget to say, oh man, I'm tired, man. Oh, my coffee wore off. Because they'll always kick you up some this is better than Starbucks. So don't forget to ask for some coffee. One thing to do is to make sure you don't have too big of a screw. So here, if I sink in all the way, I'm not going to be poking out of the door casing here. So I see people using way too long of fasteners sometimes, and then also going at an angle is also going to shorten the distance of how far this screw should get into that door casing. So we'll just add a couple of screws and we should be solid. We cut our shims, and then I'm going to put a little bit of glue so that the shims are nice and solid. Got a little bit of glue. It's just some silicone. It's a lot easier for me to use this than buying liquid nails. So I'm gonna silicone it up, and it's gonna be nice and flat now. I just have to put a couple of finish nails to hold it in place, and then we can hang our sheetrock. So I got my finish nailer. Pop a couple of finish nails, and we're good to go. I'm gonna just put a board in the other direction, and we're gonna put a screw. Go ahead and add a screw here, Dan.
We're bringing the tile back behind the fridge, so
we're gonna cover this screw up.
Doesn't matter.
Boom, and then we'll. Here's the other one. Yep.
There. Yep. Probably just to make sure.
Add one or two more. When we put up our sheetrock, I want to know where I need to put screws. So here, here, right next to, which obviously I don't even need to mark this one because I know there's an outlet. Usually anywhere there's an outlet, there's going to be, but I may forget which side the stud was on, so I put a couple of marks. All right, I'm going to put some screws in. I don't really like sheetrock screws. I use these deck screws because they come in handy and I can use them for anything. I can use these for cement backer board. These deck screws are way cheaper than buying like those Hardy backer screws. So these are a multi-purpose screw and I can use them for anything. And I can buy a whole big old jug of them like this for like 25 bucks. The other lines we're just going to score and snap with a utility knife. I use the Chicago Electric cheapest tools that they make. I went through a couple of them $100 Dremel brand oscillating tools. This is a $15 saw. It's going to break on me. I know it. I get the 2-year warranty for $6 and I replace it every 6 months, and I basically get another one for, you know, another $6 warranty, and I have 4 of them. Now, you don't have to use one of these oscillating tools. You can actually just use a sheetrock saw. They're probably like $5 to $10, or you could honestly just cut this stuff out with a utility knife. I just so happen to have one of these and it's easier, and that's what I'm using. So we're using a 1/4 notch trowel and mastic. You don't want to use mastic in wet areas. It's a backsplash. We're going to use mastic because mastic dries slower and we have more work time for all these cuts around all these outlets and whatnot. So you typically want to use mastic on a backsplash because thin set dries up too fast. This bisque tile is nice and soft. It's some of the easiest tile to install. So if you're going to try installing stuff yourself and you're a novice, I wouldn't recommend porcelain tile. This bisque tile is a good easy starter tile if this is your first project. Grab the mastic. We're just gonna stick the tile up into the mastic. I'm not gonna bother using a measuring tape. I'm just gonna mark it. Be careful on these GFI outlets to make sure that you're not covering up this little tiny screw hole. Usually we cut to the box. You want the feet to rest on here, but the problem is the foot also lands right here. So if you see, I kind of cut out just that little screw hole so the foot actually rests on the tile, but I'm not covering up that little hole. Too busy installing tile to try to get all of it on camera. So, a couple pieces left and then we'll grout. All right, guys, we stuck the tile yesterday. We're going to knife out any of the mastic we left in here and wipe it all off, get it all clean, clean everything all up. Usually it takes as much time to do the prep as it does the grout. All right, this is a non-sanded grout. Go ahead, you can go and dump it in. It's a non-sanded grout. There's a non-sanded and sanded. Unsanded is for tiny grout joints like this, and the sanded is for the bigger grout joints. A lot of the pre-mixed grouts nowadays say that they're sanded or non-sanded, or works either or, and because they're kind of a medium grain grout. So, but yeah, sanded grout is the way to go in my opinion. I'm not a real big fan of the pre-mixed grouts. I think regular Mape grout is what I would use for anything personally. So we're gonna mix up this custom grout. We would normally use a beater bar, but since it's such a small amount, instead of mixing it with a beater bar, we're just mixing the grout up by hand. So, which is a little bit more work, but it's hard to mix that small of amount of grout with a beater bar. All right, this is how you grout. You smear the stuff on, you wipe the stuff off. Also, the most important thing is having the correct sponge. So this is a Home Depot sponge. I do not like them. Do not go to Home Depot and buy their sponges. See how soft it is? When I push it in, it wipes all the grout out. This comes from Lowe's. This is called a Pro Plus. Do you see how firm this is? So when I'm pushing this Pro Plus into the wall, it's not digging into the grout lines and eating all the grout out. So make sure it's a Pro Plus sponge. You want to get this top crack real quick? So as soon as this guy spreads, it's good to go 2 guys grouting. I'm gonna come back in here and I'm gonna do what's called a circle wipe. So I'm gonna just wipe it smooth, get all the grout lines nice and full and smooth. And so I'm gonna circle wipe it, and then I'll come back and normal wipe it. So you want to wipe at a 45-degree angle, but I really can't on a backsplash this small. But you want to wipe, then flip your sponge and wipe with the clean side. Boom. That's how you do it. It's pretty simple. You're not going to get it perfectly clean. Just try to get 80% of the stuff off the tile and then let it set for a handful of minutes. Like after we grout this whole backsplash, Dan will take a cigarette break and we'll come back in and we'll re-wipe it one last time with clean water to try to get the haze off. Here it is. It's all caulked up. We just have to put the outlet plates back on.